Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode or video, whatever you want to call it, of Power Beyond Boundaries. Today, I'm really excited because I'm here with Alex, who is an actual journeyman, lineman. I'm going to ask him the difference between those later. Oh, by the way, I'm Jordan, the one who hosts this, so you should know me by now. But Alex, say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Guys, I'm excited because as I was just telling Alex before we started this, we at Juice have had a lot of conversations with like CEOs, high people up on the supply chain who are looking at things from the big picture. And like they are very, very smart, educated guys, but we also have to consider the perspective of the ones actually going out and doing the work and what it looks like from their perspective. So that's why I was super excited to have Alex on here today. He also, if you follow him on LinkedIn, is always writing really cool articles about the experience. And we're just super excited to have him. So, Alex, let's see. Is journeyman and lineman the same thing, or is it a journeyman lineman? Like, what are
Yeah, so we call it a journeyman lineman, and it's just like a classification that the union uses to show like you have reached journeyman level. Um,
okay?
Basically means like if you're a journeyman lineman, it means you can do everything with power from the house all the way back to generation, underground, overhead, transmission, distribution. They have other classifications of linemen. So you could be a lineman mechanic. That one is only they only work on distribution. You can
Hmm.
have a transmission tech lineman. They only do transmission stuff. You can have an underground lineman. They only do underground. But an actual journeyman lineman, they can do everything. So they're the Swiss Army knife of the electrical industry.
Okay, that makes sense because, like, I probably should have actually just looked it up at some point. But in my mind, like, journeyman is like, oh, well, he's just journeying around, like he's traveling everywhere. So he's just the lineman that's going around. I didn't realize that was such like a specific set of skills. So I'm glad we clarified, or else I just would have thought it was like you said, kind of moving around everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
there we
the
go.
the linemen that move around all the time, we call them tramp linemen. So that's where the
Okay,
that term comes from. You tramp
okay,
around to go from this job to that job. That's essentially what I am. I'm a tramp
okay,
journeyman lineman. I spend a lot of time on book two, which means I don't live where I work most of the time. I'm usually a
okay.
traveler. And then the travelers are like it'd be like surge staffing or travel nursing. It's kind of the
Mhm.
same vein, but we did it first.
Yep, no, okay, that makes sense. I mean, because I guess, like, there's always gonna be areas that maybe get hit harder with storms or have, new construction or things like that that
Yeah,
would require you guys to move around.
right. A lot of times it's like the project, like if you're building a transmission line through the desert, nobody lives there. So you
Yeah,
have to pull in resources from out of town in order to build that line through there. And then same thing with cities, there's not enough linemen who live in the city to actually man all the work in that city. So they pull resources from outside of it. And it's kind of an interesting workplace because you're always in demand somewhere. So
mhm,
because I travel for work, I'm not worried about any kind of recession or jobs slowing down here because I'll go to another state and work. It's
yeah.
no big deal to me.
No, that makes sense. So, I feel like I almost gave a question that would have worked well for question number 1, but I wanna scoot us back a little bit and start with this. So you've been in the field for over 15 years, as they say, boots on the ground, or really boots in a bucket in the air. Um, what's one thing that most people, even inside the industry, don't fully grasp about the work that you guys do beyond my misunderstanding of what your literal title even is?
Yeah, so the one of the big things, and I've just recently realized that like people in the electrical industry didn't realize this, but like they have no idea where we come from or how we hear about jobs or when we show up. So there'll be a big storm, and at the executive level, like you're talking about, they're like, we don't know. We just put out calls and people show up. We don't know how you hear about it. We don't know where you come from. And it's kind of funny because it's mostly like Facebook groups, uh, like Snapchat groups. It's just us and
Snapchat.
all of our buddies
Oh my
just
god.
telling them like, hey, there's a storm going here. So one thing at the executive level is they just don't know where any of us come from. And like I
Mhm.
said, most of it's Facebook groups, Snapchat groups, text message threads. And so that's like, it's a very disjointed kind of like buddy club type system, I guess. So
Mhm.
you're essentially relying on your network and your reputation as a lineman in order to get on these storms and to get on these calls, which really puts a bottleneck into the power company for getting people to where they need to be. And that's one of the problems that I'm trying to kind of figure out how to fix.
Yeah.
There's no way to, like, you can't force every company to do the same thing or to interact the same way, and that's part of the issue. Is it's so diverse, and all of the competition is sharing the same workforce,
Mhm.
and it's a really strange dynamic to navigate. So one of the things I'm trying to help fix is try to make like almost a universal system that all of these companies, even though they're competition, they can pull
Mhm.
that shared workforce from. It's just really it's really hard to get everybody moving in the same direction because we're such a big country. Every state has different regulations, every union hall has different regulations. So trying to find a way for all of those people to kind of work together, and even on the non-union side, because I'm trying to make a like a universally recognizable credentialing system, so at least I can prove who I am, and then that
Yeah.
would speed up the process, speed up the response time of everyone, and that would massively help the public. And that's one of my that's kind of been my career goal since I
Mhm.
got in, like way back when. Because
Yeah.
I was a computer nerd. I wasn't the stereotypical type of lineman. I was the guy running like a World of Warcraft guild in college, you know. So like I was
Yeah.
like I had spreadsheets and super nerd, like Poindexter, like push the glasses up and everything. But
Mhm.
in 2008, when the housing market crashed, it was like college just was no longer an option for me. And so I went into the trades. Luckily, my wife's father was a lineman, and he kind of described what the lifestyle and what linemen do. And I was like, yeah, I like puzzles. I want to do that. And so
Yeah.
he helped get me on as a tree trimmer. And then I worked my way up to being a lineman. And I've just never looked back. And I took to it like a duck to water. I love solving the puzzles out in the field and figuring stuff out. And there's nothing better than being the guy who came up with a plan and everything runs smooth and everyone's like, wow, that was easy. And that's to me, that's like the peak of my career is when I get to do that.
Yeah. No, that's so interesting, like, where you guys come from in terms of, like, "Hey, there's a storm, there's something going on, we need linemen, how do we get them?" So, like, if we see, like, Centerpoint or Entergy or someone and there's, like, a guy in a bucket truck, is that typically not one of their employees? It's normally just, like, the freelance kind of brotherhood stuff? Like, how does that work?
So if you see the local power company name on
Mhm.
the side of the truck, they are what we call in-house linemen. They live there, they work there, they know the system. If you see a contractor's name, more than likely it's a traveler that has shown up to help out. And then there's certain companies that are just strictly storm companies, so they're
Okay.
100% travelers and they don't do anything other than storm work. So they're very
Mhm.
very good at storm work. But the thing about storm work is we're just trying to get wattage to the cottage. We're not building something fancy or nice or
Yeah.
even to spec. We're building it safe and we're building it how we know to get the power to the people. And then there's usually a cleanup crew that comes in afterwards, puts it to spec, makes sure everything is how they like it. And that's kind of the process. But a lot of storm
Gotcha.
work is a lot of like band-aided stuff. So there, especially on a hurricane where you can't even get material, it becomes like a MacGyver situation, which
Mhm.
that's my favorite type of line work because it's like, hey, this is what we have on the truck, make it work. And it's like, all right, cool. And you have almost no oversight to what you do, but you have to be skilled enough to build something safe. Don't We always have
Yeah.
this saying like, don't build a trap for the next guy because you might be the next guy.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and like I said, I never put much thought into it until 2 things. One, started working with Zeus and making content with them and thinking about, the power and the grid and all that. It's like, okay, that's I see things, I think about it, and then 2, last summer was my first summer that since living in Houston, there was a hurricane that actually knocked out our power for a few days, and then, there was all the rage on, like, how the utility companies weren't fixing it fast enough and, like, they weren't prepared enough and all the political stuff that goes with it, but nonetheless,
Oh
like,
yeah.
you go out there and people they're doing their best, but, it's a huge city with lots of power lines down, and so after that, I become way more paranoid about, okay, so who's out here fixing it? And, like, when I ran into, I think his name was Steven, Manny on the plane, I asked him about it because he was going back to Houston with me, and I was like, "How do they decide who is, like, the area that they do first. I'm assuming it's probably like medical and then like things like that. Because I was like, I wonder if I can move to an area where maybe they'll be first when the power comes back. But it's an interesting thing to be on our side because we just feel like it is just this smoke screen and we're just in distress. And then you guys are actually out there like we're just making shit work. Like I'm very grateful that you guys exist, or else, we probably wouldn't have
Yeah,
sit
as far as like how we decide what to do first is we start at what we call the backbone and then work our way out. And the thing is, like hospitals, airports, businesses, they specifically build on the backbone so that they get power first. So
Mhm.
it's not that we're trying to supply the hospitals first, it's that the hospital built themselves where they will get supplied first because we have to supply them first. It's kind of funny
Interesting.
because there's a lot of like rich neighborhoods
Mhm.
that's the best way to describe them, I guess, like gated
Yeah.
community type things. They will build further away from the city, but what they don't
Mhm.
realize is all their power is routed through the poor town. So we have to give the poor people power before we give them power. And I cannot tell you how many times I have gotten, yelled at like, oh, you need to come fix our power. There's nothing wrong in our neighborhood. Like all of our power's underground. Why don't we have power? And I'm like, hey, I know you spent all this money to put your power underground, but you route it through the poor neighborhood.
Yeah.
So until they have power, you won't get power. And I'm going to fix them completely before I move on. So, like, sorry about your luck, Mr. I know the mayor.
There goes my motivation to ever be rich.
Yeah.
Okay, so this leads us into something we kind of alluded to, which is competing for the crew. Okay, so utilities today aren't just competing for contracts to build the areas, they're competing for people. And this idea came more out of just the stuff I read on your LinkedIn blogs of like, it is hard to find skilled guys. I mean, whether or not it's because the utilities companies are connected to your Snapchat groups or just because there isn't enough skilled workers. I feel like this is probably, and I don't want to make assumptions, but maybe one of your favorite rants. So tell us about the struggle of finding skilled linemen and journeymen.
Yep. So there's this huge thing. I'm sure everybody has seen it where they said like for every I think it's for every 5 skilled trades workers that are retiring, we're only having one come into the industry.
Mm,
And with technology, we don't need as many people as we used to, but also like that's a lot of knowledge leaving the industry, and it leaves this huge gap for the like we call it blue sky work, which is like this is a normal job that I'm on right now, and it pays normal wages. When a storm
mhm.
happens, it pays double time. So
Mm,
what's to keep these guys here when they could go work double time, 16 hours a day, have their hotels paid for, their meals paid for, like sometimes it's right down the road. And it's
yeah.
like it is almost impossible to man a stable job now in this country because there's so much storm work, there's so much disaster going on, and
There
they pull
is.
from all over for it. So, like, just for example, like you said, when Houston was out of power with the second hurricane they got, the first one, they didn't treat the guys very well. So the guys were like, we're not coming. We have plenty of work over here. The East Coast
Yeah.
also has a storm. We'll just go work their storm and make more money.
Mhm.
Well, then the governor of Texas said everyone's going to pay double time for this storm until we get it done. And that was the only way they could entice people to come down there and work. And it's
Wow.
like the it's not that the pay hasn't kept up because linemen do get paid very well, in my opinion.
Are you
They
saying
could
you're
get paid
rich,
more
Alex?
always, but not rich, but I'm not hurting like everybody else is with the recession. And
Word. Yeah, feel that.
so it's like we're not we're not getting taken care of, but we
Mhm.
are the worker has all of the leverage at the moment because
Yeah.
every one of these contractors needs me more than I need them. I've turned down even just this week, I've turned down 3 job offers and 4 storms just this week alone. And it's not even like a big storm event going on. It's just these little storms that they need people to come up for. And there's a lot of guys that they don't even work regular jobs anymore. They just work storm and they're making 150, $200,000 a year, and they're only working really about 6 months out of the year. So they're loving it, and
Yeah.
it's really hard for utilities and contractors to compete to keep workers on like a steady gig like what we're doing now.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like you guys are kind of this mysterious group of people. You don't necessarily go to school, like you said, and become a lineman, journeyman. Like this is something like you happen to be pulled in because your father-in-law, he was doing it. But if the workforce is shrinking, like I mean, other than like people like you putting word out, like do you see any other efforts to attract, young people, middle-aged people, however old they may be, to come into the workforce? Because the whole, recession-proof thing, that's pretty sweet. That's a good selling
Oh yeah,
point.
huge selling point. And with AI coming up, AI needs power more than anything else.
Oh
So
my god,
like
yeah.
we're never going to be short on work. Even if they built robots that could do line work like today, there's enough backlogged work that I'll still work for the next 20 to 30 years. Like I'm not scared of AI taking my job even a little bit. But to answer the question, I think the biggest problem we have with attracting young workers is that we're not going where they are. They are
Yeah.
on a digital platform. They're digital first. Like when you think of a blue collar worker, you probably don't imagine a guy with a cell phone in his hand or playing, computer games.
Yeah.
But that's what the youth is doing. So those are the blue collar workers of the future. You have to go find them where they're at. And that's where I think digital tools and digital outreach is so incredibly expensive because tech is recruiting younger and younger people. Like I have children that are I have an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old. Every single one of them has seen a recruiter from the tech space. If you do coding, if you do data security, if you do this, you can come work for us. You can work remote. You can work from wherever you want, home, vacation. That's really interesting and really enticing to the youth. And then you have drop shippers on TikTok, you have influencers on TikTok, like all of those paths, they look so easy compared
Yeah.
to a blue collar, you know, you're going to work in the mud, you're going to work in the cold, you're going to work in the rain, but you'll have really good benefits and maybe not so good work life balance. But it's like we need a digital pathway to where we can show them and we can give them hope because that's the big thing the youth is looking for is they're looking for hope. Like they want to see if I work hard, I will get this benefit. And that's one thing that
Yeah.
line work can provide. We're still one of the only places I know of that still has a 55 retirement age. And you if you're working in a union strong area, you will have enough to retire at 55 if you want to. Even if you only work 40 hours a week your whole career, you'll still retire with over a million, over $2 million in your retirement, which is huge. And
Yeah.
so that hope is there. It's just the message gets lost because they hand them a clipboard and, like my kids haven't even wrote anything since they were in grade school. Everything
Yeah.
is on computers. So if you're handing out pamphlets, you're already lost them. Like it's just not where any of the youth is. So that's another thing that I'm working on with Junction is to try to make these digital pathways where it's like you do this step, this step, this step, and now you get this reward. And if you lay it out for them like that, then they'll start picking it up and moving in that direction. The youth is extremely smart. It's just they have a different way of looking at information and learning than the older generation. Because a
Yeah.
lot of the older guys, you couldn't Google how to set up a wire site. You just either had to know or you had to know somebody who knew. You couldn't call anybody. They didn't have cell phones. So it's like
Yeah.
that old school thinking of like, we have to figure out a way to do it. That's not the way the youth thinks. The youth is like, I'm going to go find the information. I'm going to look it up. So and to their credit, the younger generation can look up stuff like that. So if I'm building a bank and if I ask the old guy and the old guy hasn't memorized, he starts explaining it and he'll be like, oh yeah, and then you got to do this and then you got to do that. Meanwhile, the young guy just whips out his phone. He's like, this is what we're building. It's like, oh yeah, that's easier.
Yeah, no, it's interesting too, because like going back to what you said about the careers that they're kind of presented with of this whole influencer thing, which I more or less have a little bit of a business around, which, happened on accident. Like I went to school for engineering and I do have a technical day job, but I see so many of my friends like, oh, I want to become an influencer. It seems so easy, but they put so much time and effort into something that's not a linear input and output because
Hmm.
you can post all day every day, but like there's a chance that like you never go viral or you never create any value and you're just trying to be something that's so diluted with so many
Exactly.
other people to where it's like, like you said with this lineman path, like not only is there need, but there's so much security. And I think it's just one of those things, it's not as popular and like socialized. And I think
Exactly.
when you're young, maybe you're not thinking about, oh, I need money unless you like have an upcoming or upbringing where, money was front of mind. But if you had a stable upbringing, you may not think like, oh, geez, like I really care if my job pays me. Cause I've been laid off before and that was scary. I was like, oh my God, like what now? And it's like you guys don't get laid off necessarily. You just go where the
We
next
quit.
work is. Yeah, you
We
get
call it
fought
dragging up.
over.
We're just like, ah, I'm done here.
Exactly.
Bye.
Yeah, it's opposite mentality to me, like, because my day job's in oil and gas, and it's like, you expect to get laid off every few years, whereas you guys will never experience that, and I feel like there's, like, my younger brother and sister are figuring out what they wanna do, and I think, like, them knowing stuff like this exists may and even to a lot of young people, bring a little bit of comfort of, like, "Hey, there still are jobs that are stable," versus some of these data jobs where it's like, yeah, you actually easily are replaced by AI, or
Hmm.
robots or something like that. Whereas I feel like, and I'm not gonna, talk bad on robots, but robots are powered by electricity or batteries. So that and there it's really hard to make one that's okay when it's wet, unlike people.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's I would have a very hard time imagining robots, up on the poles doing everything themselves. Like the programming alone would be
It
insane.
would be insane.
I hope I eat my words one day. I hope that they can help you guys out, but we'll see. We'll see. For now,
We,
though, we're
yeah.
good.
Oh, we're super good. And like I said, even if they have robots, they're going to be able to work in perfect environments. But whenever it comes to like some of these places you go to where it's been cobbled together with tape and bubble gum, like
Yeah.
the robot would be so confused on what to do, whereas a lineman would come out there and be like, okay, I see what's going on here, and this is how we can fix this so that we're back in spec. And that's a skill you can't get any other way than experience.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, now next question. I'm skipping the one about retirement. We already kind of hit on that.
Oh yeah.
Showing the work. So you have a pretty strong personal brand, hence how I found you via the LinkedIn. And you share a lot of your takes on things happening in the field, the workforce. I already talked a little bit about that earlier. How do you feel that what you're doing by sharing your stories is helping the community by you being unfiltered and just being raw? Because it's something I enjoy and I know the benefits, but I'm curious from someone in your shoes, how do you see that being beneficial?
Yeah, so I've reaped a lot of benefits from it. So one thing is if you're loud, you're hard to dismiss out of hand. So
Mhm.
like because I have such a large following, especially on like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, things like that, when I say something, it actually holds weight and people listen to it. So
Yeah.
if I say, "Hey, this device works really well," it gets out to a lot of people and it goes to a lot of places. And so that's something that's was really surprising to me and is a really powerful thing. So and it really helps like the young people learn something. So
Mhm.
if I'm on a job doing dead ends and the guys don't know how to do dead ends, I'll go up there, I'll make a TikTok about this is how I do my dead ends.
Yeah.
And then I can share it with the younger linemen and they can see it, they can refer back to that video and they can get way more hands-on experience because it's like having the journeyman in the bucket with you. And these
Yeah.
young journeymen they're very good. They're very skilled at what they do. They just haven't done this type of thing. And this is how you can essentially get that knowledge out to a broader base because I can't work with everybody, but I can
Mhm.
send everybody a video as if you're working with me. So then when you go up to do it, you can go, okay, I'm going to review this video real quick. It's like, 2-minute video, and then you can go up and you can knock it out of the park. And then another huge benefit is like when I go on Storm, and when I'm in an area, I will tag the area and tell them I'm on storm. This is what we're seeing on our side.
Mhm.
Everything's a mess. Don't expect your power to get back on, but we are out here. We are working. These are the conditions we're working in. And that I think that gives the public kind of a peek behind the screen to be like, oh, they are working. They are doing something rather
Mhm.
than them just driving by and seeing a you know, whole parking lot full of trucks and they're like, why aren't any of those guys working? It's like, well, we
Yeah.
can't until we get clearance. We can't get clearance until we can get access. We can't get access because all the roads are flooded. Like those type of things. Then the
Get a
public,
b
yeah, the public is like way more understanding then. And I don't think I was the first one to start doing it, but I was one of the earlier people to start doing it. I started doing it
Mhm.
on TikTok about ooh, 5 years ago now. And so now there's a bunch of other linemen that do that as well. So now the public can see like, okay, they have guys working, they're doing XYZ, they're trying to get us our power back, and these are the obstacles that they're running into. And
Mhm.
it just alleviates a lot of stuff because like if the public's in the dark, they just get angry. And
Yeah.
everybody's only about 24 hours and two missed meals away from just absolute chaos. And that's
No,
the way
we
every
get
storm has
mad.
been.
We get mad so fast, and I remember just, like, looking at, like, LinkedIn and all the social medias, and people were like, "Oh my god," like, just attacking the utilities providers and just, like, going off, and it was, like even after that for months, they had to do so much PR to be like, "Guys, we were doing our best, please." But it's I mean, when you have a natural disaster happen, there's only so much preparation that can be done, and sure, some people do it better than others, but I do see it's very valuable when it's like you guys are kind of almost doing the PR for them of like,
Hmm.
"Hey, someone is doing something about it." I know
Yep.
you don't see it necessarily because publicly traded companies, they have to go through so many filters to put out a statement because they're gonna get picked apart, their stock is affected, whereas you
Oh
can
yeah,
just be
100%.
unfiltered and say, "Hey, look, we are doing it right here, right
Yep.
now, and I didn't
We
need to
are
ask
working.
10 people to post it." Like
Yep. Exactly. And it's when I first started doing it, I was told like, don't TikTok with any company logo. I don't want to see any company logos. Don't do it during company time. Now when I go on Storm, I have the exact opposite. I have bosses saying like, "Hey, can you do a couple of TikToks and let them know what it's like to work for this company?" Because
Yeah.
like I said, those companies are competing for linemen. So if they see me there, and like I said, I have a fairly large following of linemen. If they see
How
me
many
at this company,
followers do you have on TikTok? I didn't even realize that you were on TikTok.
I got just over 40,000. I think it's
Oh
41 something.
oh my god,
Yeah,
you're
and they're
famous.
they're mostly linemen too, which is super amazing to me because I get a lot of back and forth and a lot of like, hey, I'm doing this, and somebody will jump on and be like, if you do this, it's a little bit better. And so
Yeah.
we're really like able to sharpen our skills that way, which is fun.
I need to go follow you so I can learn more about it. I love that. I'm gonna have to follow you there. I should have done more research, but that's exciting. I'm excited to go look at
Yeah,
that.
it's really funny because you have like two different like avenues of your life. You have like your professional life and then your personal life. And I kind of
Mhm.
consider TikTok like part of my personal life.
Yeah.
And then LinkedIn is more of my professional life. So
Mhm.
I do a lot of storytelling on there. Like I try to share kind of the raw, what it's like in the field, what it's like to, battle depression from being on the road or being
Yeah.
away from your family. Um, like I said, having a dog really helps.
Thank God you have a dog. I don't know how you would
But
do
yeah,
it. Like, that'd be I could imagine it'd be so depressing just, like, I'm such a baby. If I leave for, like, a day or 2, I'm, like, calling my husband like, "I miss you. I wanna come home."
yep,
Like
that's the way it started out. But I was an apprentice and I traveled so much, and then back where I'm from, like I said, there's not a lot of work in that area. So what it
Yeah.
kind of goes in cycles, like a 12-year cycle. They'll build a lot of transmission and then they'll build a lot of distribution and then that those projects will be good and they'll move to another area and do it. And
Mhm.
so when I first got in, there was a big push in my area, so I got to stay home.
Nice.
Then as soon as I topped out, it was like, well, we've done everything here. We need to go somewhere else. So then it was like
Yeah.
I've been on the road basically ever since. Um, but yeah, I all my friends are linemen, so like when I go on the road, every job that I show up at, I know at least one or two guys. And so that's something that's really nice about the trade. It's a big country and it's a small trade, and your reputation will outrun you to every job you go to. And you usually, if you tramp for about a year, maybe two, you'll pretty
Mhm.
much have a friend on every job you go to because it's the same mentality and the same type of guys just showing up at all these different jobs over and over again. So I've been on most of the big jobs across the country. Like when California had the big fires, I was out there
Mhm.
for 10 months.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then when they had their big inspection push, I went out there for another 9 months. So it's like, then the Sun Tzu project, I was on there just a little bit. They had another project in Colorado that I was on. It's like all the real big projects you go to, there's like all my buddies are there. So it's like as soon as I show up,
Yeah.
I get to have like a mini reunion. And that's the way Storm is too. All the Storm guys you show up with, it's like, hey man, I haven't seen you in like 5 years, but I love you. You're my buddy. Let's hang out. Let's get on a
Yeah.
crew together. So it's really nice having that actual brotherhood mentality in the trade.
I just got an idea. I feel like we should be feeding fraternities into this trade because, there's so many of the guys, they're just guys being dudes, hanging out with their bros, and they can never grow out of the bro phase, and they just are obsessed with, like, having that group of friends based off of having an organization. We could just put them straight into this lineman path, and they could just hang out forever, like,
Oh yeah,
problem
we
solved, they'll
do
never have to grow out of it. Like
exactly. We do really, really well with ex-military personnel. We have
Yeah.
hard hats to or helmets to hard hats, I think is the name of the program. And
Mhm.
it's an excellent program. If you're in the military looking for somewhere to go when you get out, line work is an excellent place for military personnel because we're like I said, with us being in high demand, we're one of the last places where me as a worker has more power than my boss does. So if my
Yeah.
boss tells me you're going to do this, I can go, no, I'm not. That is a bad idea. I refuse. Well, you're fired. That's fine. I'll walk down the street and go work there. I don't care. That is like it's one of the few places you still have that where you can put your foot down and be a man's man and I will not do what you tell me and I will leave. I
Yeah.
remember the look on my face the first time I quit. It was like essentially a $200,000 a year job, and I called my dad, and he's worked in a factory his whole life, so and he like made 70,000. So I was like, "Yep, quit my job today." And he's like, "What are you gonna do?" I was like, "Go get another one." How? What happened? Are you okay? What's going on? Are they gonna want you back? And I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine. This is just what I do in my trade." And he's like, it just blew his mind.
It's just interesting when you can have that dynamic, and like you said, most jobs, like, that doesn't exist, but I wanna move us to the next topic, which is going to be sort of the portion where I can get a little insights on if what Zeus is doing matters to people that are on the front lines like you guys. Zeus, as many of you guys know that follow us, they do a lot of the sourcing of transformers, all the pole line hardware, things like that, that guys like Alex will be working with. And then sometimes it's transformers that just like go on a big building. It's not even, the pole line ones. It's a big mix there, right? But like the whole availability portion, all these news articles are like transformers are backed up for years. We can't find them. And then Zeus will be like, but we can. It's just not through the routes you normally do. So I'm curious on your end when these storms are happening. Is there no transformers around? Do people actually have them? What's the deal? Are they there? Are you guys having to fix ones on site? What is this supply chain shortage? Is that actually affecting you guys on the front line, or is this just more of a corporation thing?
So it's actually a huge problem when we're on storm because not only are they trying to get like aid into the area, like water, food, clothing, things like that, they're trying to get poles, transformers, like you said, hardware, and you're usually operating on whatever the power company had in stock. And on a big storm
Mhm.
event, like you said, it's impossible for them to plan for that. So you'll be in the field and it's like you'll get the directive like we can't get more transformers. It's like all right, so every transformer that's on a pole that's usable, you try to reuse it. So you'll check it, make sure there's no holes in it, make sure there's no leaks, make sure nothing broke, and then
Yeah.
you'll put it up on the new pole. So you'll be using an old transformer on a new pole. And then when I was working out in Colorado, we were just doing normal everyday work that was scheduled years in advance, and all of a sudden
Mhm.
no more transformers. We can't find them. And it's like, we need we need transformers. So like, what do you want
Yeah.
us to do? And they're like, well, just reuse the old ones. So now we're putting up new wire, new
Oh
poles,
my god.
new everything, new services, and then this old transformer from like the 80s. And it's like, come on, like as a guy building stuff in the field, it's just like it just looks dirty and you don't like
Yeah.
I know it works and it's fine, I guess, but it's just like I want to build a good looking product because there's
Yeah.
just something in every lineman where they're like, I want it to look nice. So when somebody comes in after me, they're not like, look at this thing that this guy built, you know? And
Yep.
so it is very much a very hard bottleneck, especially on transformers. For whatever reason, it's like, especially during storm, like transformers are like gold. So if you find one that's
Interesting.
beat up but not broken, you'll keep it.
Yeah, because I hear, like, a lot of things are, you have to order them to spec to where it's not just like a one size fits all to where companies don't wanna, like, stock up on too much because what if they don't
Hmm.
need that type or, they don't wanna spend the capital, and so I just wonder 'cause a lot of the guys I talk to are more just, like, in the office or, looking at high level things, and then I was thinking, what do they actually do out there when they don't have them? Like, because power is still getting turned on, but there's all this new greenfield development happening because the data centers and all the stuff you see in the news, and it's like there's not enough there, and that's, why Zeus got started, but Zeus wasn't started by a journeyman lineman, like, they were started by people who saw the financial, like, aspect of, "Okay, this makes sense in the market needs this, let's go for it, let's hire experts in it, let's get into it," but it's so different to actually be the person living it versus, like, evaluating it, so it's cool to hear that.
And a lot of it too, like the power company never talks to guys like me. So I never get to that power company level. Like
Yeah.
we are the redheaded stepchildren of the power industry, and they keep us away because with us not needing to keep our bosses happy, we'll just
Mhm.
unload. So if we get into if they put us in on a storm, if you bring a contractor lineman, specifically the lineman, not the foreman, not the
Mhm.
GF, not the safety guy, but if you bring one of the linemen into the shop and he'll just unload all the problems that he's had. You guys aren't
Yeah.
giving us enough tape. You're not giving us enough bolts, not giving us enough copper. You're not giving us enough of this. We're stealing it off. And they'll just read them the riot act because they're
Yeah.
like, you can fire me. I don't care. I'm not going to be working here in a week anyway. I'm here for the
Yeah.
storm. So here's a laundry list of all the problems that I see on your system, which if you could set your ego aside, that is the best source of knowledge about your system because like I said, the further away from relying on you for a paycheck I get, the more honest and brutal I can be about all of the
Yeah.
faults. And that's something I think the power company is missing out on drastically because they ask the PM, they ask the GF, they ask their in-house guys. All of those people rely on their boss to be happy for a paycheck. I
Yeah.
don't. So I will tell that guy the truth, while everybody else is financially motivated to lie.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. I feel like we just need to make this whole video series the laundry list of things that guys are saying because of a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of our followers are utility companies that, we target as customers. And so it's like, hey, we heard it from the linemen themselves that these problems exist. No denying it. Order some transformers, please and thank you. We know you need them. But it's always kind of
exactly.
like that, like you said, putting the ego aside to step in and say, like, okay, how do I nicely say this? And I'm pretty good at nicely saying things, but it's I like the raw version. Like I said, when I met Steven on the plane, it was so funny too that when I like pulled your LinkedIn up, he's like, "Oh, Alex, I know Alex," but like Steven wasn't, what did I say, the most polished person I've ever met in my life. The longer we talked, the more I understood him, but they actually ended up having a pretty good time. He taught me a lot about, stuff I'm doing marketing for. And so it was pleasant, but I think I could see how maybe some of you guys may come off as rough around the edges and hard to listen to, or
Yeah,
as,
we definitely need a filter. But
but
like I said, great source of knowledge. And like every lineman I meet is just like, I just want to do my job and I want to do it
yeah.
well. So like, help me do that. I don't care if it's hard work. I just want to do it well. And so that's like, it's such a good attitude for like a group of people to have, but they are rough.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's kind of like the thing I feel like with most field workers of any profession though, and that's why it's like, oh, the people that are a little better at talking and wearing suits go to the office, and then the other guys that are a little rougher on the edges, they go in the field, but the longer you're in the field, the rougher you're gonna be around the edges, and so it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Guys, we can't have it all because we can't send the people wearing suits to the field because what are they gonna do? They're gonna quit." So it's like it's definitely a delicate balance of seeing both, but I've been connecting more with other linemen and trying to, just, get more into your guys' world to see what you all care about because maybe you're not the ones who right now are the ones signing the POs, but if we can make your lives easier and learn more
Hmm.
about what you want, and then we can, nicely tell it to the utilities companies on your behalf, then it's like, okay, maybe we can fix some systematic issues. But that's just me being optimistic. So but here we are trying.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're a company that makes it easier for the workforce to come work for them, like the workforce will start showing up more. They'll have more guys on their jobs. They'll get their jobs done. Like it's really hard to show that value to them, but once you can
Mhm.
articulate that to them, it's invaluable because like I said, the scarcest resource in the electrical industry right now is the manpower. There's
Yeah.
not enough people to do the jobs. I think the IBW said they had 6,000 jobs slated to start this year. That's just new jobs. That's
Oh
not
my god,
including
that's
all the old
crazy.
jobs. That's 6,000 new projects. each one of those projects could take 10 to 15 guys. That's a huge workforce. And that's just what they're planning. Microsoft bought 3 Mile Island and they're building a nuke plant and transmission lines. Like that's crazy. And it's all to feed their data centers, but it's going to take guys like me to show up and build it. Quanta just got I think it's the largest transmission project ever from,
Mhm.
I think it's somewhere in Missouri over to the West Coast somewhere, but
Yeah.
it's just these massive infrastructure projects, and we don't have the manpower for it. Like,
Yeah.
not even close. And then we don't have the people that could manage those people because you're either in your 50s just looking for a retirement gig to kind of slide out, or you're in
Mhm.
your early 20s and there's work at the house. Why would I go on the road? So it's like they don't have the the people in the middle like myself are rare because for whatever reason they had like a hiring freeze during the slow time, and it's just now it's caught up to them, and like nobody knows how to fix it. Nobody knows how to kind of navigate these waters. So that's where the industry's going to be at for, I'd say, probably in the next 10 years until we can get ahead.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a scary thought, and sometimes it overwhelms me when I'm, like, looking at the articles of, like, "Okay, all these things are coming, we don't have the resources to build them, but we have to have them to keep up with everything else," and I'm like, "Cool, what are we gonna do?" There's gotta be some smart person in a room somewhere who's figuring this out for us, hopefully. Um,
I
yeah,
keep
until
thinking
then,
that and I keep looking for one, but I can't find the room of smart people. They're just
I
kind of
don't know
like,
where they are. They're well hidden.
yep,
But in the meantime, we'll be the squeaky wheels that are out here chatting about it.
perfect.
One more question before we wrap up, because I know I'm a little bit over time. We sent you some of our Tilsitech gloves, the rubber high voltage electrical insulating, whatever is the longest title ever for a pair of gloves. And you gave me a little bit of a review on it. You've worn lots of electrical gloves in your day. We want, from a lineman's perspective, what did you think of Tilsitech's gloves?
So what I liked about them is the rubber did feel more flexible than the
Hmm.
other brand that I normally get at work. So that was nice. I did enjoy the bell cup because like in the summertime your hands swell. So if you don't have that bell cuff, then one, it's hard to get your sleeves in there, and two, you can almost cut off the circulation to your fingers, and that causes like if you're in your gloves and sleeves for a while, which a lot of us, will go up, you'll be in your gloves and sleeves for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time,
Yeah,
and like if you don't have enough adequate room in there, or they don't flex, or they don't have the right size, you can get skin conditions, you can have fungal infections, you can have all
yeah,
kinds of issues just because you're stuck in the sweat of your gloves constantly. And so it's
yeah,
like having a good pair of gloves is hugely important to the guys that are doing the work. And there's nothing more frustrating than a cheap set of rubbers and a cheap set of protectors, because it's like, as the company, it's like you had one job to help me out and you
yeah.
botched it. So it's like I did like your gloves because, like I said, they're flexible. They have the bell cuff. They have everything that you need to do the job, and that's like what linemen need. They just need the tools and the resources to actually do the job.
You know, I wasn't sure which ones to send you because I didn't realize there was so many different types. And so I was like going through and I was like, okay, sure, class 2 or 3 or 4, there's like those, you can narrow that down. But then there's like all the different cuffs, all the different colors. And I go into the warehouse with Patrick and he's like, well, which kind did he want? I said, size 11, 12. I know the size. I'm going to give you a class based off a guess. I don't know all these other things. And he's like, was you want red or black or yellow? I'm like, how? I don't know. I was like, let's just send him to see if he even likes them. And he's like, well, which ones? And I was like, let's just first pair of size 11s we find, we'll send him those and go from there. But like, I didn't realize there was so many different options. And like, I just thought there was the different classes. And then I didn't realize like you said, the bell cuffs and things. So I'm learning quite a bit. You guys have lots of different accessories that you need to do your job and even just the glove portion. It's a lot to keep up with. There's so much to
Oh
learn
yeah,
about what you guys do.
and there's different protocols per different style. So if you have dipped gloves, you can roll them.
Mhm.
If you have pressed gloves, you can't roll them. So you have to put them in a long bag. And it's like there's all these different like idiosyncrasies that go with our safety equipment.
Yeah.
Most of them just learn them from the journeyman next to us, or the apprentice that just got out of school. It's like, hey, this is new. Do you know about this? And that's how knowledge is disseminated throughout the trade is just ask your buddy about it. So it's very much a word of mouth type of industry for all things. And like when new tech comes out, the biggest problem that new tech runs into is they will go and sell a power company, and the power company will buy it without
Mhm.
training the workforce, and then they just hand it to them hoping that they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Most of the time we do, but every once in a while you'll have a guy who didn't figure it out properly, used it incorrectly, it broke or it failed or something happened, and now that tool or that work practice is banned
Yeah.
because this guy's basically covering his ass because he didn't do it properly, and he's like, oh, yep, that product's just crap. And it's like that has happened so much on so many cool things that we
Yeah.
got to figure out a way to stop that. Like
Oh my
we need a way
god.
to like precede training in the industry so that when new tech is coming out, not only is the new tech coming, but the new training came with it, and we can verify that those people got that training, that installed it, or that used it. Because otherwise, you miss out on a lot of innovative technology that way because somebody uses it incorrectly and it breaks.
See, you should just be flattered that they think you guys are so smart that you don't even need to be trained, that you could just be given literally anything and just know exactly what to do with it. It's the faith is huge in you. No,
Huge, way misplaced.
training is very important for literally everything. So yeah, I would imagine especially with like high voltages and if something happens, I imagine it's never just a small incident. So that's
No,
like literal lives, there. And you'd think even from like the money hungry perspective of insurance and protection, that should be
but
obvious
yeah,
to do that. But
you would
it's
think
just
like liability alone is just it's liability in our industry is massive, and it's
yeah.
like they're always trying to figure out a way to make the trade safer, do this, do that, and they invest so much money into like IT security or substation security, but they invest hardly anything into the manpower security. And it's like they don't have any clue who's out here, who's doing what. Like I was telling you through a message, like just with the tools on my truck, I could wreak havoc, if you will, because like the stuff on my truck is what I use to take down lattice towers, and I bought it at Home Depot. So it's like it's not hard to get. So it's like that, and they don't have any clue who's out here building the stuff. They don't know, and most of us, I mean, most blue collar, they're criminals of some kind, like not bad criminals, but
Yeah,
like
just
they
regular run of the mill.
yeah, run of the mill, like normal criminals, like the good kind of
Yeah.
criminals,
Yeah, the kind that
salt
you
of the
hang
earth
out.
type of
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
but
For
criminals
sure.
nonetheless. And it's like
Yeah.
these are the people you're trusting with your infrastructure security and like keys to substations, keys to transformers, keys to, you know, like I know the main tie for the hospital. I can drive out a system and I can map it out in my head and I know where the backbone is. I know where your power comes from. I know what sourcing is. It's like if you ever had a lineman go on one of those, like the riots that are going on, if any of those people were
Yeah.
linemen, like, woof, you would have havoc beyond that.
Yeah. No, because I think that I recently was trying to figure out, "Oh, we're dry on content, I need to make something." And I was like, "What if I went to, like, a substation and, like, took a selfie?" And they're like, "No, no, 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 no," because there was just, like, something that happened in, like, Baltimore a couple weeks ago, and, like, people tried to knock out power at a substation. They're like, "You will be arrested." And I was like, "God
Yep.
forbid a girl is creative."
Right.
But okay, noted. And so I will not be going to any substations to take selfies. But no, you're so right. Meanwhile, the lineman, you guys, you're walking in there, but I think you guys earned it. I think maybe if there's a little criminal activity here and there, I think your guys' lives are revolved around bringing power online, and so I think that's why you have the earned, like, right to go in there without question. But absolutely, like, to all linemen out there, if you ever think about doing something you shouldn't, please don't.
There's been a few incidents, and when they happen, they're like they don't they don't make the news, but every lineman knows about it. So like we know when one of our own like goes a little crazy. It's usually an
Yeah.
in-house guy that gets fired and is mad and goes and does something, and then he's just quietly banned from that area of the country. Like you are no longer allowed to work here. Be gone.
I would
And so that's
love the gossip in the group chats. Like, I feel like
oh
I
yeah,
I love reality TV, so I'm a big fan of gossip, not gonna lie. So I
you know,
feel like
there's a
it would be
lot of
going
that.
off.
Snapchat has been the biggest source for like people who mess up or like do something where they're not supposed to, they'll post it on Snapchat so we can get the real story, but that
Uh-huh.
story will expire and delete itself. So then the source is gone.
Oh
But
my God.
everybody in the trade who's in those groups knows what happened.
That is
That
amazing.
happens quite frequently.
I haven't had Snapchat since I was single. So I like literally when I got it, I was like, "Well, I was only just using it to talk to boys, so I don't really need it." But it's funny to think that like there's literally like stuff like that. Like there's so many different ways to use technology and platforms. And I'm just now today having all these light bulbs go off of how the linemen do it. And so I think I'm left with a little bit of research of I need to look more into this because there's probably way more interesting content out there that I had no idea about. And I'm about to be reposting all these people's TikToks on our page and being like, all right, follow them because clearly they know a little bit more about this stuff than I do. Also, while you're at it, buy a transformer. But it's this has been awesome, Alex. I gotta wrap this up because I've gotten like as you have as well, multiple missed calls during this, and I did a terrible job at keeping us at 30 minutes. So apologies, but thank you for your time.
Yep.
Um, before we wrap up, any last words of things like you want to leave us with, or go follow you here or there, or just whatever you want to say to the peoples?
Yeah. So you can follow if you just look up my name, Alex Wakeland. I'm on all the socials. I'm not very creative with my name on the socials because it is just my name. I'm easy to find, hard to miss. I'm working with junction.us, not .com, it's junction.us. And I'm trying to bring like a digital platform to the workforce. Like I said, there's a lot of money that's been dumped into IT and operational security. There's been hardly any money dumped into actual people. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's my goal is to kind of bring that awareness out and to help people verify who they are. So when I tell you like you're low on transformers, you know that that's coming from a source that you can trust. And that's
Yeah,
kind of my goal.
that's
I'm the
really
youngest of
interesting.
8, so like I'm used to
Oh my
not
gosh.
being believed. So like
Yeah.
everybody just never believed me. So now it's like I need basically a big brother to say, no, no, he knows what he's talking about. And that's what Junction essentially will do. It will
Oh my gosh.
also fill out new hire paperwork for you. So
Wow.
it makes operations faster, more secure. It makes my life easier, and I can prove who I am and what I want to do. So it's good for the entire industry. I really want people to look at it. So just go look
Ah.
at it.
Okay, we will link everything below and whatever I guess this will be on YouTube or the website and LinkedIn and whatnot, but we'll make sure to link to it so people can go look at it. But Alex, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on. I'm sad your dog never barked the whole time, but
He's a good
maybe
boy.
next time.
He's
I
sleeping.
know, he's so good. But we will oh, he's such a
Sleeping
good
in his
boy.
hammock.
Wow. Well, thank you for the close up of the dog. I post my dog enough on LinkedIn. I guess I was able to leave proud of this video. But guys, thanks so much for watching and learning more about this. And of course, like we said, with all the Zeus stuff, if you need any transformers or things related, contact Zeus, all that sales pitch stuff. But anyways, guys, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.